Welcome to How To Tuesday for this week. I put it out on social media this morning that I was going to be recording some of these, and I plan on doing, 5 or 6 at a time. I always like to get suggestions from you guys as to something that I may know that could be a good topic about this. And if I don't know, I'm also not afraid to go and find out from someone who does. So I welcome the topics. I welcome the suggestions, and I really appreciate them. Today, the first one that we're going to address, how to anchor over a wreck. I got an email. So, good morning, Tom. My name's Eric, and we have recently purchased a little larger boat and been exploring some of the wrecks offshore, staying within about 5 to 10 miles of shore. I'm struggling to keep the boat over the wrecks when the tides and winds are moving in different directions. I've listened to your podcast and love them. They have been very informative. I'm looking for one on this topic, but if I missed it, please let me know. All right, so you hadn't missed it. I just haven't done it yet, so this is a great suggestion. Couple things. The anchoring over a wreck can be very challenging. When you go out with a guide and he pulls up to something, looks on the bottom machine, sees the fish that he's wanting to mark, sees the wreck that he wants to do. He fairly effortlessly surveys the scene, goes up, drops the anchor. You land perfectly. That takes high skill. Okay, that's somebody that has fished there a lot, that understands the wind and the tides, that really understands anchoring and his boat and how his boat reacts to the wind. All boats don't react the same. So if you go with someone and they anchor perfectly on the first try, you probably got yourself a really good captain. And that's kind of the difference between good and great out there. First, getting the bait, and secondly, being able to anchor where you want every single time. So there's a couple of tricks that certainly make a big difference. If you have the numbers on the wreck, one of the things that was pointed out to me by Steve Roger is that one of the things that he makes sure that he does as he approaches his numbers is he makes sure that his GPS is not set on course up or heading up. It's set on north up, okay? So as you get closer in and you're trying to find a waypoint, if you're set on course up, the screen is just going to rotate around, making it very, very difficult for you to find the right place to anchor. So set the screen on north up, and that will keep the screen a constant. And then what you want to do is you want to go right over the wreck or the reef or the rock or whatever it is that you're trying to mark and anchor on. And you want to survey kind of the wind and the tide, make sure that it is something that you want to fish on that day. So if you're marking a bunch of fish and you're marking the wreck, then what you want to do is just stop there, cut the engines, and you don't have to turn them off, but just put them in neutral, and then give it about 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes as you're starting to ready your anchor, rod, and chain. If that's where you have decided you're going to fish for the day, give it about 10 minutes, maybe eat something, do something. Let the wind and tide drift you as they are going to when you go and put yourself on the anchor. So now you're going to have your course going in there. Then you're going to see where you stopped. And then as long as you have the track set up on your GPS, it is going to show you the track that you have been drifting on. Okay. So then you can start looking and saying, okay, well, it drifted me over this way, so I need to be up there. And you can point on the GPS and see exactly where you need to go, so that when you put the anchor line out, you will drift back just like expected. And you can kind of draw a line in your head of where that may be. If you really want to make sure that you do it right, you can put a waypoint up there so that you're, as you're looking on the GPS, you put a waypoint up there, you're not eyeballing it, and then you go to that waypoint. Of course, you're going to want about 3 times as much line out as the water is deep. So, if it's 100 feet, your anchor isn't going to pull if you have 300 feet of line out. So again, you want to be 300 feet. You want to drop the anchor 300 feet above where you want to be. And then the trick is to do it so that when you drift back, the wind and tide are not pushing you off the wreck. So it's fine if you do not anchor perfectly the first time, especially if you're out there by yourself and there's no one to bother. But it becomes very problematic when there's 5 or 6 people anchoring in the same place and you want to kind of get in there close. You really need to know what you're doing, and it takes a lot of practice. You don't want this to be your first practice. And then, ethics and kind of the rules, unwritten rules state that, as long as the transoms are roughly even, you should be okay. If your transom, if you anchor up next to a bunch of other people and you're 50 yards further down than they are, obviously you're messing everybody up. So don't do that. Get in there and get your transoms even. Now everybody's chumming and fishing at the same time. And of course, each place has different rules and ethics and modes of good operation. So you want to make sure that you're doing this in a way that it's okay with everyone around you. But in a lot of these places where it's a couple 100 feet deep, 2 boats on that spot is fine. 3 boats can be fine. Sometimes in some spots you can have a lot more boats than that. But just be careful with, making other people upset, and definitely practice before. Now, here's another thing. There's some technology out there that has made this whole process much easier as well. So that's how you would do it with an anchor. There's another way that you could do it. And with this email that Eric sent me this morning, it sounds as if he may be fishing out of a bay boat. He's only staying 5 to 10 miles offshore. If you have a bay boat with a low enough bow, oftentimes you can use a trolling motor offshore. The trolling motor has some new technology that is fantastic. We use the Motor Guide XI5. It has an anchor mode on the motor. So if I get where I want to be, in other words, I run over the spot that I want to fish, and my Lowrance system lights up. I'm marking all kinds of fish down there. I can put the trolling motor down and stay exactly right there. I can also jog 5 feet to the right, 5 feet to the left, 5 feet up, 5 feet back. I can do that in 5-foot increments any which way I want to go by using the remote control or controlling my trolling motor through my Lowrance GPS. That is a game changer completely, because now you don't really have to worry about the wind and tides and which way they're taking you, because whichever way they're taking you, the trolling motor starts to compensate for, and it will keep you exactly where you want to go. So these don't work on all boats, because some boats, the bow is generally too high to be using a trolling motor like that. Although at ICAST this year, just recently, there were a number of trolling motors that were coming out that had extra long shafts specifically for this purpose. So that's something to keep on your radar as well. Maybe you upgrade your trolling motor to a Motor Guide XI5 or another one out there that has the same kind of capability, and you get out there, put it on anchor mode, and you stay exactly where you want to be. So that is that's How To Tuesday for today. How to anchor on a wreck, and a lot of it has to do with preparation in advance. Make sure that you get that screen on your GPS on north up. That's going to help tremendously. And then take 10 or 15 minutes to establish a good drift. And then you can decide where it is that you need to put your anchor. And you can pretty much be there right away. Also, the other advance planning that you need to have is, if you have an idea how deep that water is, 5 to 10 miles offshore, or wherever it is that you're anchoring, make sure that you have at least 3 times that much anchor line in the boat. Okay? So, How To Tuesday today: how to anchor on a reef, how to anchor on a wreck, how to anchor wherever it is that you want to, and have a reasonable chance of hitting the wreck below you. I hope that helped. If it did, send me an email, podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. I love getting those emails. If you have other suggestions for topics for the How To Tuesdays, send them to me. Guests, Physical Fridays, whatever. I enjoyed so much meeting you guys at ICAST. So many people stopped me that listen to this podcast. I really, really appreciated it. And I'm just glad that everybody is enjoying it as much as I am. All right, we'll see you next week.